And first thing on the agenda is the roll call.
Commissioner Lorge.
Here.
Commissioner Hoyt.
Here.
Commissioner Larson. Commissioner Grindal. Commissioner Husnick.
Here.
And President Bain.
And please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, anybody care to make a motion to approve our agenda tonight?
I move we approve the agenda.
Second that?
Sorry, I was reading something.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
We'll just approve. Aye. Okay, so the agenda is approved. What we're going to do is we're going to skip over the minutes of a regular meeting last month because of the fact we don't have enough people here, so. Okay, EDA introduction, EDA history, projects, work plan, and
I'm going to take this
Abby, you're doing this, okay?
acting president. Is that how that works? Really sorry, give me just a second. I've got a slide to help us stay on track. Thanks, Acting President Husnick. At your last meeting, it was requested of staff to kind of bring to the EDA just a little bit of more information about the EDA, some of the information we provide in our onboarding for new members, but also just a little bit of the background and some of those current endeavors. So this is just a refresher for the couple of you that have been on it. Member Hoyt, this is again, maybe a refresher as well, but we'll go through this quickly. So local economic development is, there's really no specific formula with local economic development. It's a program, policies, activities that seek to improve the economic well-being and quality of life for a community. Generally, what communities will do is they'll analyze their community, the socioeconomic data, population, businesses, strengths, weaknesses, and then that will form the policies in which an EDA undertakes. That policy development has been something that this body has done over the years that helps create that work plan that the EDA revisits every 2 years, I believe. Forest Lake's EDA history, the City Council elected to start an EDA in 1998, and the initial kind of endeavors of the EDA were really focused on downtown development and the Broadway corridor. Those are our two largest, commercial areas, and I think the EDA was really focused on helping improve those areas, including just that visual aspect of them. So downtown, the EDA was instrumental in doing some streetscape enhancements, some parking lot enhancements. They were involved in some of the improvements in Lakeside Memorial Park. Other physical developments, the EDA was also a big player in the airport business park development and was also part of some of the Headwaters Village development, the planning for the Headwaters Village PUD. So just for frame of reference, that's where Bell Bank is located in the Headwaters, or the government center. But it wasn't just physical development that the EDA has been involved in. The EDA has also been a big proponent of things like design guidelines, community branding. This body was really instrumental in helping kind of keep those movements going in the city, just because those are kind of areas in which not our planning commission isn't really focused on, our city council hasn't always had the time for, and the EDA has kind of filled in that role. We can't do what we do without our partners. So it's not common for local municipalities, especially small communities, Forest Lake's still a relatively small community, to have a standalone economic development department, full staff. So we rely on our partners. For a long time, the city has relied on its partnership with Forest Lake Area Chamber of Commerce. They really are, in some ways, our eyes and our ears in the community, especially with businesses, helping us bridge that kind of sometimes gap between business and government. We also partner pretty strongly with Washington County EDA. That's the Economic Development Agency, Authority. So not in addition to helping with financial assistance, both to the city and also available for our businesses, Washington County EDA provides technical assistance for businesses, our local businesses, through the Open to Business program. So that is anything from startup to dissolution, which we hope our businesses aren't doing, but Washington County EDA is there for free technical assistance. We also participate in the Minnesota Commercial Real Estate Association through Washington County EDA. So a couple times a year, we'll attend annual conferences or expos and just be out in the commercial real estate development world, showing that Forest Lake is here and we're available to talk with real estate development. Forest Lake Area School Districts, their Career Launch program. So Career Launch really is a program for youth to expose them to business and careers, and everything from job shadowing to bringing in panels and speakers and you name it. The Forest Lake EDA has been somebody that's helped support this program from inception, and we're always looking at ways that we can help both our business community and the Career Launch program, the school district, in building a better career launch program. And then the Minnesota Technology Corridor, which is a public-private partnership. So we've got counties, cities, but then also local utility companies that have created the tech corridor along the I-35 interstate. And this is really designed to help attract technology-based businesses, data centers, schools, hospitals, that are interested in larger lots, but also have high capacity for internet and other utilities. So we are part of that program as well. Current projects, as of late, so included in your packet was the current work plan for the EDA and the most recent update of where we are at with the work plan. The downtown plan has been a big focus of this EDA in the last probably 18 months or so. We'll continue to work with that plan. This body just actually approved another just smaller planning study to look at that lakefront redevelopment and how we can look at incorporating multitude of different uses along through there in a reasonable way. The Headwaters 123 site, which is a 123-acre parcel of land that the city has actively marketed, that's in that technology corridor area. But we currently have that out in the commercial market right now. We've recently updated the Commercial Incentive Improvement Program. This is essentially, it's a grant. It's a forgivable loan to businesses up to $5,000 to reimburse them for expenses that they do on the outsides of their businesses. And then overall, in general, the work plan kind of moving forward is looking this year at policy development, just revisiting the underlying policies for business assistance, and then those specific policies such as like tax abatement, TIF, some of those things that this body doesn't maybe work with as often, but we also need to make sure are current and active and fresh for what we need them to serve the purpose for. So in a really high level, there's kind of the history, the introduction, some of the current things that are happening. But this is just designed to give you the information you requested at your last meeting. Do you have any questions?
I might have just one on that Commercial Incentive Improvement Program.
Yeah.
How do local businesses find out about that? Is that something that we out to them? And
So we have, in partnership with the Chamber's put it out in their weekly e-newsletter. It is on our EDA website as well. I do believe it's maybe gone out in the city email. Can you confirm that, Dan? Have we sent it out in our weekly updates at all recently?
I don't recall if it's gone out in the weekly email yet. I know the chamber has sent it out like Abby mentioned, we can also get some Facebook posts mentioned as well for it. Because when what we're seeing now is that when the net sent it out, I bet you within 15 minutes after it hit the mail inboxes, I got calls. So there's interest in it. I'm also getting, there was a bunch of sort of interest at the big, probably mid-year coming through. And since we were going through the revision process of the policy, a lot of those projects, I said, you can come in under the new guidelines if you complete your project. So I'm working with a few applicants right now that haven't formally applied, but they are intending to apply once their project is completed. And they wanted to come in under the new guidelines. And I said, as long as we've had an initial conversation, I'm fine bringing you in under the new guidelines. So it's getting out there.
And then as we, planning, zoning staff, myself, start to talk with property owners, business owners, new businesses expanding, this is definitely something we make them aware of as well. So try to hit them in a couple different ways to get that information out.
I also just want to mention too, I have had a conversation with Tyler from Open to Business. So when he's doing business consulting, he is aware of our new program and is helping them with, if they're going for him for financing, I told him there's this opportunity that they can get up to 5,000 of that reimbursed, because from the city standpoint, we don't care how they fund their project, but once it's completed, we can reimburse them for the $5,000. So I told him, as part of your kind of financial consulting, if you want to let them know that program is available as well. So he has the materials for that program as well.
But Dan, I want to make sure everybody knows that the 5,000 is the maximum one.
Correct.
Because
Yep.
we're using 10%, right?
Yep.
Yes.
10% of what the value of what their
I was gonna
improvements
ask,
are, up to 5,000, just so everybody knows what that.
Yep. So it's up to, so if you do a project in excess of $50,000, you still only get $5,000. You don't get, if you do a $100,000 project, you're not getting $10,000. But if you do two separate projects that are both below the $50,000, you can apply for multiple applications. But at this point, you can't qualify for more. On each application, it has to be less than $5,000 total that we can give them.
I just wanted that clear for everybody, so. Yeah, Abby, what else do you have for us?
That's all I have tonight.
Okay. This goes back to 1998, and the reason I'm bringing that up is the fact that I was serving on the planning commission back then, and it was right about, we were still transitioning with the merger. And so that there was lots to do, and the EDA was a big help. All right, so Dan, are you going to talk about our budget then? Is that
Absolutely.
okay?
You'll have to forgive the colors of my presentation. I've just come out of Disney World for the last 5 days, so I'm a little colorblind right now. So everything is overly vivid. So I saw this presentation background and I'm like, ooh, let's go with that one.
Yeah.
But I think it's probably more inclined to the fact that 5 days in amusement parks. I'm here today to give the kind of an EDA budget 101. Again, this kind of came out of the last EDA meeting where there was some kind of confusion, not confusion, but people wanted more information on the EDA budget, how much we have in the budget, what the process is. So today is basically an EDA budget 101. At any point during my presentation, if you have a question, feel free to stop me, and happy to answer the questions at this point. But kind of the goal tonight is to kind of go over the budget, go through the process, and then kind of, I also have a 10-year projection that I'll go through as well, to kind of show, based on current values in the budget, where we look at from 10 years out. Because I think that long range is very important as well from an EDA standpoint. To start out, presentation. The EDA is funded from a separate fund. It's funded from Fund 212. This is separate from the city's general fund. So if you see city general fund dollars, those are separate dollars from the EDA. The EDA does have its own fund, which is in essence sort of like its own checking account, to think of it kind of in personal banking standpoint. So all funds within the EDA stay within the EDA's Fund 212, unless they're directed to be by either EDA or council to be reallocated out to the general fund. The EDA is funded by an EDA specific levy. So the EDA does have the authority to generate tax revenue, and it is generated through a specific tax levy. Currently for 2023, that levy is set at $150,000. So out of all the property taxes collected by the city of Forest Lake, $150,000 of that is EDA dollars that come in specifically to the EDA. And they're not as part of the general fund levy that we have, which it's a separate levy amount, but they all work in total in terms of what the levy is for the city. From a budget process standpoint, on an annual basis, we typically begin budget discussions in July or August. Those are typically looking at where we start those is kind of having a conversation of what do we want to do for the upcoming year? Are there any initiatives that we want to launch? Anything, what's going well, what's not going well, kind of to start that conversation. So if we do want to go down a different path or launch an initiative, we can start looking at what the cost of that is, so we can budget for that for the upcoming year. Based on those discussions, the levy request is determined, so we can look at what we need from a levy perspective based on those conversations. That levy amount then gets wrapped up into the city's overall city budget process, so then we know what the total levy is for the city. So the city's general fund levy, as well as the EDA levy, all of that gets considered by the city council. And then in October, there's a recheck-in with the EDA. So it comes back and says, did the city council make any adjustments to the levy request that the EDA made, in light of what's happening on the general fund side? So we do typically one final check-in in October, and then the final budget is adopted in December. So the city council will adopt that at the first meeting in December, and then that sets the budget amounts for the upcoming year. So that's typically the process that we follow on an annual basis for how we establish our budget here at the EDA. For 2023, we've taken the EDA's budget and really put it into 4 buckets. There's a lot of individual line items within the city's budget that these sort of roll into, but to kind of make it simpler and more approachable, we've rolled them into 4 different buckets here. The first one is operations and wages. This is currently right now, this is set at $87,500. Planning is $25,000. Contract services at $7,500, and then the commercial incentive improvement funds at $30,000. So that is how we allocate out the total of $150,000 that we get, or the EDA has to work with for 23. And I will go through what is included in each of those categories here on the next slide. So for operations and wages, that $87,500, that includes all of the staff wages. So part of Abby's, or the community development director's salary, is allocated from the EDA. A portion of that, her salary, is coming from the EDA budget. We also have board member wages come out of there. So the EDA's, the stipend that you all get comes out of the operations and wages portion of it. Anything we need from an operational standpoint, the website support for the EDA's website, any supplies that the EDA needs, tech support, all of that stuff comes out of the operations budget, as well as any specific engineering or legal charges. Those are all budgeted under operations and wages. This is the biggest portion of the EDA's budget, so most of our dollars do go to support the operations of the EDA. We also have in there, and I don't have it listed on here, but if there's a need for like marketing materials, trade show display type stuff, that would come out of operations and wages, that bucket. On the planning side, we have $25,000 allocated in 23. This contains any planning activity that the EDA engages in. So historically, what we funded out of here is the downtown sewer shed study, where we looked at capacity for the sewer system in downtown. The downtown plan was funded out of our planning bucket. All of our Headwaters 123 wetland delineation and phase 1 environmental studies came out of our planning bucket, as well as our Headwaters concept platting came out of this bucket as well. We do tend to try to leverage these dollars as much as we possibly can with grants from the Washington County CDA. Any application that or any planning study that we have, if it's eligible for a pre-development grant application, we make those applications so we can leverage city dollars and county dollars to make our dollars go further. If it's a smaller study, like the Headwaters concept platting, I believe it's 80-20, so 80% is funded by CDA, 20% by city. If it's over 10,000, it's 50-50. So we've leveraged that for the concept platting, Headwaters 123, the phase 1, as well as the downtown sewer shed and the downtown plan. So we've leveraged those CDA dollars quite a bit over the past 4 years to get a lot of planning activities completed here in the city. For 2023, we have already approved 18,345 for the downtown boat launch and shoreline study. So we do have a large portion of our planning dollars already allocated for 23. Going forward, contract services, this is currently at 7,500. This is our BR&E agreement that we have with the Chamber of Commerce. That was approved back during the February meeting. That contract is for 7,500, and we do spend all those dollars with the chamber. And it's, again, it's a great partnership for the city, for the EDA to have, that we have with the Chamber of Commerce. And the second largest item that we have in the EDA budget is the Commercial Improvement Incentive Program. We have $30,000 allocated for that program. One thing about these dollar amounts is that this has been increased over historical amounts for two reasons. In 22, we increased it to $30,000 with the intent of, if we don't spend all $30,000 in 1 year, that remaining dollars builds our fund balance up. So we're using that to build that up. So in the future, if we have a larger need for an incentive or something comes up, a project comes up, a capital investment comes up, we have cash on hand. So we're using that to sort of build that fund balance up. But also, we didn't know exactly what the response was going to be, you know, and there's sort of that, because when we redesigned this program, the original program was specific to downtown, and we've now expanded it to pretty much all commercial areas within the city of Forest Lake. So we didn't know by increasing it what the demand or what the requests were going to come in at. So we sort of pulled $30,000 based on current, you know, kind of historical numbers that came in. We felt pretty safe by offering 30 grand as a starting point. So in years, if we say get inundated with, we say this shit, $40, we do have some fund balance from last year's. We didn't spend all that we could allocate to that. But this is there with the intent of, if we don't allocate all 30,000, we're going to build up that fund balance of the EDAs. So we have cash on hand for when the next project comes in to the city. The fund balance of the EDA. So right now, I can't give you the exact figure because we're still going through 2022 audits, and there's going to be a few, you know, changes to it. But I did ask prior to me leaving for vacation last week was, you know, where's approximately where we are. And right now we're sitting right around $200,000 in the EDA's fund. So fund balance is sitting approximately 200,000. If you look back, I think last year, but this time we were sitting at 130-ish. So we do have a pretty good increase this year. Two reasons for that is that we came in under budget on a few operational items last year, and we did not expend all 30,000 worth of CIIP dollars last year. And then we got some reimbursements that came in for some planning activities through the grant application. So that is where that sizable increase came from, is from the reimbursements and kind of coming in under budget on a few items from last year. So we're sitting on approximately $200,000 worth of fund balance. And I would also like to caution the EDA, it's never a good policy to spend all of your fund balance down in one shot. You do want to maintain at least 50% of your operating expenses in your fund balance, because the way tax dollars are allocated, we don't get them on a monthly basis. We get them in two chunks, mid-year and the end of year. So we have to make sure that we have cash on hand to fund those expenses that come in from January through mid-year. So we recommend that we always keep at least half of our operating expenses in as fund balance. And then while that number may seem, you know, 200,000, it's a sizable amount. When you start looking at some of the incentives or some of the programs that come in, those dollars can go very quickly. You know, especially if you have, you know, a larger, you know, a very large project that comes in, asks for an incentive or an abatement. You need to fund those up front with cash. Those dollars can go fairly quickly. So it's good. We have a good fund balance now, but I just say that those numbers can go pretty quickly when you're looking at it from what can come down the road. So for some future budget considerations, a few things that, you know, to keep in mind as you look over the next 10 years. One thing is, speaking of downtown plan, is the funding of the downtown plan. There's a lot of projects that are included in that downtown plan. And right now, you know, we're looking at what are the funding opportunities for that plan? Where can we fund it? How do we get those projects accomplished, get those projects from concept to in the ground? So that's a big piece of future budget considerations for the EDA. And then also other EDA initiatives. Is there anything else the EDA wants to do outside of kind of current operations? If there are additional initiatives that we want to get engaged with, they could have future budget implications as well. So kind of keep that in mind, as we start looking at, future budget projections or future budgets. And from a future budget perspective, what I did here was I kept the levy amount the same at 150 for the next 10 years. Just saying, if we hold the line on our levy and say we're not going to make any levy increases over the next 10 years, what happens to our operating budget and our uncommitted funds over the next 10 years? I assumed a 3.75 annual operating budget increase, kind of saying where we are from inflation, which right now is a lot higher than 3.75, but kind of putting a number in there, what happens just to our operating budget? Remember, that's wages, that's sort of the stuff that we need to keep the lights on at the EDA. So what you start to see is if we keep our operating levy the same for the next 10 years, the projects that we can get engaged with, the funds that are available at the end of 2033, we're only looking at approximately $23,000. So we're starting to see that decline in what's available from a project perspective. And I bring this up is just kind of saying that, we need at some point to put a funding strategy together where we're not just kind of continually kicking that can down the road saying, we're at 150 today, it fits our needs today and maybe for next year, but in 10 years down the road, we're not going to have a lot of uncommitted funds that are going to be available for projects or operations here at the EDA. So and that's just kind of taking, I would say, a fairly conservative 3.75% operating increase. If you run it at 4 or 5%, by the time you get out to 2033, you're almost basically all of the funds are getting allocated just to cover the operating expenses and keep the lights on. So I put that in there as just sort of we need to come up with that strategy to start to figure out how do we sort of incrementally kind of keep that levy amount to kind of match with what we're doing from a project perspective. So we're not kicking that can down the road. So in 10 years down the road, we're like, we don't have any funds to do this initiative or this project. So that's pretty much what I have tonight. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the EDA has on the budget or future projections or fund balance or anything that you have related to the EDA's budget.
Any questions for Dan? You went over the question that I was going to go talk about anyways, with the $200,000 versus the $150,000 that we have in there. And that's left over from previous years. That's how it works.
Yeah, so, and I should have mentioned this earlier, that the EDA's fund, if the revenues come into the EDA's fund, they don't leave the EDA's fund. So like, unlike, say like if you go into like the city's general fund dollars, if you allocate so much to the IT budget, if those dollars aren't spent, they just kind of get rolled into the general fund. This is like the airport fund where they stay within that fund until they have to be transferred out. They don't just automatically go into the general fund. So that fund balance there, it grew because based on last year, we came in under budget, but there also always has been a little bit of EDA dollars that were there for some. I think it may have come in from previous land sales. I don't exactly know where some of that dollars originally came from. There's always just been some fund balance in there. We've used it one year to cover when we did the forgiveness of the license fees, I think in 21. We used EDA fund balance to cover that expense because that was going to create a hole in general fund. So the EDA was like, well, we'll cover those. We'll use our rainy day funds to cover that expense. We didn't have to go back and adjust general fund dollars at that point. So it's good to have those fund balances there because in the event mid-year project comes up, cash on hand, we can cover that.
That's not a use it or lose it kind of
Nope.
thing. That's the important thing.
Yep, nope, it'll stay there.
Who comes up with the 10-year plan?
We can work with that as part of our next year's budget discussion. This was sort of the first time I looked at, because I think it's, we did a fairly sizable increase 2 years ago to get it to 150. Originally, we were at $50,000 a year that the EDA's levy was. It went to 150. This year, we didn't make any recommendations to increase it because it was sort of the second year of doing that. But when you look at that 10-year projection, that's when all of a sudden the numbers shift. So staff will evaluate that and bring it back and saying, here's the recommended increase from a levy perspective to keep us, being able to do those other type of programs as well. Because if we don't start doing that now, like I said, 10 years, we're basically just going to be covering keeping the lights on here at the EDA, not being able to engage in any type of programming.
Those discussions start in September already. Okay, next thing on our agenda is the city updates. And Ryan, you want to, should we start with you?
Just a lot of miscellaneous things going on right now, a lot of site redevelopment applications that have been submitted that we're working through with Ken and Abby and other city staff. MnDOT's still working forward on the Highway 97 project, as you guys are aware of. We'll be at the April, or no, that's the county, sorry. So right now, they're currently trying to figure out the staging plan on that and working through stormwater stuff with that project. But that's still planned for 2025. If I had to guess, there's a potential that gets pushed back because of all the surrounding construction that's going to be going on, which are the 2 county road projects, and then the elephant in the room is the Highway 8 project. Currently where that stands, that's about half funded, but that would be a full reconstruct with the trail on the north side all the way from Carmel Avenue in Chisago City with the roundabout there, down to the right where they left off with the alignment of the Highway 8 ramp to I-35. I know it's not all within Forest Lake, but once that corridor opens up and capacity and safety is improved, I do see a lot more transportation going down that road over time, whether it's residential development, commercial developments, better access for trucking through the areas. So that's obviously going to have a huge impact in time when that does get built and funded, not just during construction impacts, but after that. That's something that's always continued to be on the radar. And obviously, if they're half funded, money is going to continue to go to that project, and less money in Washington County and some other stuff. So there's the balancing act too, right? But on their 2 county projects that are coming in 2024, Everton Avenue from Broadway, they're going to be doing some mill and overlay on Broadway, but a full reconstruct of Everton Avenue through the Menards intersection. They're actually 90% plans show that access being relocated to align with where Taco John's and that pet store is. So that would be a much greater distance from Broadway, better turning movements from people coming off Broadway into Menards. So a lot safer intersection there. And then we continue the recon south all the way down to 11th Avenue, where they stopped with that project. But there will be a pedestrian 10-foot trail on the west side of that roadway. So that'll be a huge safety improvement for that neighborhood and connectivity to our other pedestrian facilities within that area of the community. And then we're moving forward with lighting that corridor too. So that'll be, time recreational option, especially if people live in apartments there, probably have some different hours and stuff. Then they'll be coming to the April 13th City Council workshop to talk about the cooperative agreement for that project. And then we're starting in the early stages of the County State Aid Highway 32 or 11th Avenue recon that's planned and scheduled for 2026. That would include some pedestrian facilities. We just don't know where yet at this point because they're that early in that project. But so a lot of that activity is going on, and
Sounds like a lot.
there's still, I think some of the funding that's been left over from the COVID money that's sitting there in reserves and stuff, right? You're going to see that bleed out over some time. So I think it's going to camouflage somewhat where we are right now on some unit pricing and construction, materials and stuff like that. So anytime we can do these co-op agreement projects or work with other partners and maximize some of this stuff, that's going to be a valuable way to move projects forward. Grants, whatever it is, this goes back to us lobbying with our representatives, and more time we can spend with people at the legislation on stuff, that's only going to help us. I mean, there's just always weird stuff that's coming out, whether it's going to affect our building departments, our public works, our public safety. Somebody wants to make, a bill that you're like, why would they do that? So it's just got to pay attention to those little things that are going to be happening here in the next several years. How can we promote what would be a benefit to our city and not a negative thing financially or staff leveling and something like that? So those are just kind of bring your awareness of something totally off the ball, what we talked about, but, you know, if you're aware of everything going on, it's only gonna help us in the long run. That's all I got.
Thanks, Ryan. Any questions for Ryan on that?
Yeah, you were going to the legislature gathering after.
I was invited to attend there from another community to promote something for them, but I have been to the Capitol several times with the city of Forest Lake. You have three bonding bills that were submitted.
Yeah.
So if we could get invited down there and talk to the representatives and testify for why we need, I'm more than welcome to do that. Good adrenaline rush.
Can you keep us abreast of what's going on when you say we need to be aware
Dan
of it?
submitted the bonding bill request, so he would have the most current information. I know MnDOT reached out about Eureka Avenue. I gotta provide them some details on that.
I haven't I've been out of the office last week, so I'm still playing catch up a little bit, but if there isn't any update, I'll bring that back to the EDA at the next, staff will bring that back at an upcoming meeting.
Those conversations are gonna be coming up at the council level too, so.
Correct.
And
Be able to check with.
just to
Dan on
piggyback that conversation, the city was successful in securing $1.7 million in bonding bill funds for a sewer lift station project. The total project was 4.3, but we timed that right with another I&I grants through the Met Council. So cross our fingers, we can even get another 200-some thousand dollars back on top of the projects that we did, plus that bonding bill money that we were successful in securing too. And sometimes it doesn't always come just in here's a straight grant. It's funneled through some federal money through other agencies that have helped our local share on projects. We got a lot of federal money from MnDOT's on the two projects here, the two roundabouts when they did that one, and then the Goodview got some federal money from them too that they spread out over the local shares. So there's a lot of just ways to help try to finance projects, especially with the costs of construction increasing continues. Put some data together that we'll bring forward here shortly, just so you guys can get a picture of what's going on with what we're having to try to estimate just even as early as 2019 to where we're at currently.
Ryan's done a really good job at keeping at that, so we really appreciate that. It's been an asset. So, any other questions for Ryan? Okay, Abby, you anything to add for today?
Just a couple of things to piggyback on Ryan's. City Administrator Casey and I did meet with Senator Housing last week. We did talk about the 3 different bonding bill requests that we've made. So just for the EDAs, one is for a new public works site to be at the corner of County Road 50 and Highway 61. And then redevelopment of the Tower Park site and expansion of that park. One would be for a regional stormwater facility in kind of the southwest corner of the city to help some of the development that we anticipate in that area. And then the other one would be the redevelopment of Eureka Avenue going around Clear Lake. When we met with her, you know, obviously putting in 3 bonding bill requests at one time, you hope that you get one. We did express also, you know, our interest in talking with her or any of her colleagues about other creative funding opportunities, especially for something like Eureka Avenue, where you're going to have the DNR involved and MnDOT's going to be involved, and there's lots of players, but in a very critical, high natural resource area. So just to piggyback on that, a few things for the EDA to be aware of. We are starting to work with Spike and Hools on the preliminary design of their second phase. So for new members, the development at the Hool elevator site, Gertons bought the property. They're redeveloping the existing building, rehabbing it, adding on portions of the building that needed to come down and being redeveloped. So their phase 1 is fully under construction. We're starting to talk about phase 2, which would be a new commercial greenhouse, landscaping, parking. That whole site would be well developed. Also starting to talk with a local or a developer about a new 40-room assisted living facility over near Quick Trip. It'd be on the north side of the highway. We've got a little pocket of land to buy room to growing daycare there and there, looking at some sort of potential memory care assisted living facility. Much of our single family residential or much of our residential development has gone quiet. There's a variety of factors associated with that. It's not just Forest Lake, it's kind of a national thing right now. We are still in pretty active communications though with the Shadow Creek development, which is on the northeast side of County Road 50 and Highway 61. That would be a couple different pockets of multifamily residential apartments right on the corner, and then up off of Good View, some other residential units. But the preservation of Shadow Creek Stables is kind of the landmark of that development. That business would still be retained. Beyond that, we don't have much else. We've got lots going on, but nothing else like that might be of a noteworthy point at this point. So,
Thanks, Abby. Any questions for Abby? Dan, do you have any further updates for
I
us?
do. I have two quick updates. I spoke with Bruce on the downtown boat launch study and shoreline review. He is working on that right now, and hopefully we'll get some stuff out soon on that one, because I know time is of the essence in terms of exploring dock spacing, et cetera. So he is working on that right now. So that's in process. And I also want to let the EDA know that I applied with the Real Estate Journals for the Municipality of the Year Award, and we are a finalist for that award right now. So we'll find out, thinking sometime in April, if who's the winner is. But I just found out on Friday that the city of Forest Lake made the finals. So we are a finalist for Municipality of the Year Award. And a lot of what was presented in that award application was work that the EDA did. So a lot of, if the award is if we do win the award, a lot of that's based on the work that came out of this EDA. So kudos to the EDA for all the work that you've done in getting us to that spot where we're actually now being recognized for what we've done in the last 4 years. So that's my big news. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Questions for Dan at all?
Yeah, did anybody communicate with the DNR yet, or?
we have a meeting set up with the DNR next week. Yep. So there's a couple different, there's actually some private development that has inquired with the DNR and the city, and so we're going to meet with them on that, as well as our own lakefront improvements, including improvements that your boat club has expressed. So we're looking at kind of many different public and private developments.
You have to wait till the.
So the meeting that we're going to have with them is more of a really high level one, kind of what are some of our options for redevelopment on the lakeshore, and then permitting processes. As part of our shoreline study that we're doing, that the information we get next week will be put into that, and that'll be brought back with a little bit more of a comprehensive analysis of options along that shore lakefront. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Carl, do you have anything for us?
I'm sorry, no updates, thanks.
Okay, all right, we're gonna move on then. And Dan, the Washington County update, you know anything that you can help us with there?
I don't have anything from Chris for this meeting, so I have no update from Washington County.
Okay, we'll skip that one then. And Forest Lake Area Chamber of Commerce, Nanette?
Well, hello. I can give you a joint update from Washington County. The Washington County Chamber Coalition, of which Chris and the Workforce Center are all part of. We created a coalition a couple of years ago through the pandemic, and we hosted our Optimize Your Business Summit last week right here, was it 2 weeks ago, here at City Hall upstairs, and we had over 50 in attendance. It was fantastic. We had facilitators, and Commissioner Miron was here to welcome, and it was just a fantastic opportunity for businesses to meet with each other and brainstorm. There was basically 5 different topic areas, and then a moderator who was there to lead them through a series of questions that they could then discuss within each of the groups. And it was just really well attended, and the results from it, from what we're hearing, the feedback is mostly positive, and that really that local business, and actually there was businesses all across Washington County that have come. So they came as far as Cottage Grove. And the big thing that was noted that I thought was spectacular was they did not realize, it didn't matter the size, what kind of business, that they were not alone. If I was a business owner, I was not the only one, that there was a whole table full of people who were experiencing similar challenges. And so we were very pleased with that, and we'll be doing the same thing again in Stillwater in May. And so, and then moving to the future, or that was our past, and now right now presently working on a couple of community events. We have our exciting Spring Fling, which is a shop local and family fun event. It did originally take place of the Lakes Area Expo when the pandemic hit. but we have continued to move forward with it because it does serve a different need. And so we've also, we're excited, we're partnering with the City of Forest Lake to, they are doing the first launch, you would say, on April 1st with a spring spectacular here on the grounds of the city. And then from there, there's a variety of things from the Easter Bunny at different places, photos with the Easter Bunny, Easter egg hunt, shop local specials. And so that runs from April 1st through April 14th, which coincidentally, not really, lands the day before the Lakes Area Expo. So we're bringing back the expo this year, which will be at Maranatha Church again. And so we're busy creating all the marketing and promotional materials to fill both of those events, as well as draw the attention of the community so that we have good attendance for both of them. And that's kind of what's going on with those two. Any questions about that? So,
And what date is that?
and so the expo is on April 15th.
The 15th,
Yep,
okay.
it's a Saturday. Mhm.
Are you going to have a booth?
We did talk about it briefly, Abby and I did, and
From a staff's perspective, we just don't know necessarily, aside from our one commercial improvement program, that we're really quite there to engage with that much of the public in that setting. We just don't really have a lot of local promotional materials and that sort of thing. So we didn't think that this would be the year that we would have any sort of a booth at the program or at the expo.
we did talk about the possibility of a sponsorship if that was something that the EDA was interested in. We, within the expo, we have a facility, a lounge, where the vendors can go to take a break, grab a snack, grab a water, just take 5 minutes to take a break. And so that's a real B2B kind of business to business kind of format. And so I did talk briefly with Abby about that being an opportunity for the EDA. No people need to be present. It's a pay for the sponsorship. We'll provide the signage and pay for whatnot to have in the lounge. So that would be an opportunity. That would be a non-booth opportunity if this group is interested.
I think we should talk about next year being prepared to have. Because we could, I have a booth there, and there's a lot of traffic that comes through. People are aware of the EDA, even the commercial incentive program, a great way to make
Didn't we do this in the past, Dan, where it was just kind of a city booth? I mean, we had several different factors there, airport, EDA, the city itself, and
Yeah, when this first came back, the city was there as a booth. I was at the booth full day, or the full day, and we had, I think, also a council, and we had the building department there. I think it was a home show that we might, if people had questions on building, we'd have a representative from the building department that was there. What we found from the city's standpoint was there wasn't a lot of interest in what we were trying to pitch. They were they walked by, they grabbed the USB drive, they sort of took our freebies, but we didn't really get any engagement or follow-up. There was, I would say the biggest seller that we had was the Arts in the Park schedule. They would just grab the schedule and kind of move on. The next year we were there, I mean, attendance was great. The other vendors I think did extremely well. I think when you see the city standpoint, since we're sort of there just as a municipality trying to answer some questions, people just sort of walked by our booth, and even like trying to engage with them, there just wasn't a lot of engagement. Because I think, again, they were more looking for a contractor or a realtor or what other items else was there. They weren't necessarily looking for government services at the time. So we have tried multiple variations of it, and both of them just haven't really generated a lot of leads or a lot of touch points. Although we did give away quite a few USB drives. Whether or not they followed up with us on that, I don't know. I know one kid came by, I think took 4 of them, like, you can have as many as you need. So that's one of the main reasons I think, especially kind of now looking at this year, is not having the man booth, because again, we just don't have a lot of programming activities that we could really promote. And I think if you look at it from a resident standpoint too, residents aren't necessarily looking at it from, the commercial program, while it's great for the businesses that are there, it's not really the market sphere for the residents, who I think the attendees are, primarily are the area residents that are there. And there also is a slight bit of confusion since it's in Wyoming, which I have no problem going to Wyoming to be there. There's a little bit of confusion where it's like, well, you Forest Lake or Wyoming? And it's like, we're Forest Lake. And there's a little people come in and it's like, well, we're in Wyoming. I'm like, I know, we're crossing the line. We can do that as staff. We can go to Wyoming and be okay. But it just hasn't generated a lot of leads for us, even though we've attacked it from different angles and just haven't really found what fits yet.
Well, thanks, Dan. Anybody have anything else?
You can all be looking forward. We, as soon as I can breathe, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll be getting the information out on our annual golf event as well, because we want to look forward to golf and sunshine in July, right? And so it'll be, that'll be next on the agenda, but thank you so much for.
Do you have a
allowing-
date for the golf?
I do.
tournament?
It's July 24th, so Monday, July 24th. Got that, Ryan?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, if there's nothing else on our agenda here, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I was writing.
Sounds like we do have a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
And he seconds. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.